The first lie my husband told that morning wasn't, "I have to work late." It was, "You look beautiful." He kissed my forehead, smiled the same smile I'd trusted for 12 years, grabbed his laptop, and walked out the front door. By midnight, he still wasn't home. At 1:17 a.m., my phone buzzed. It wasn't Ethan. It was a photograph from an unknown number. No message, no explanation, just a picture. My husband, laughing across a candlelit dinner table, holding another woman's hand. I stared at the screen for so long that it went dark. Then it lit up again. A second message. "I think you deserve to know the truth." That was the moment my marriage ended. Not when he cheated, not when he lied, but when I realized someone else cared more about my honesty than my own husband did. If you'd asked me the day before whether Ethan Bennett would ever be unfaithful, I would have laughed. We'd been married for 12 years. We had a 10-year-old daughter named Maya, a mortgage, 2 aging dogs, arguments about whose turn it was to take out the trash. We weren't perfect, but we were real. Or at least, I thought we were. I met Ethan when I was 21. I was studying education at Ohio State. He was finishing a business degree and working nights at a bookstore. He wasn't the loudest man in the room. He was the one quietly helping customers find books while everyone else tried to impress them. The first time we talked, he noticed I was carrying 3 heavy textbooks. Without saying a word, he took 2 of them and walked me to my car. No flirting, no pickup line, just kindness. 3 years later, we got married. 5 years after that, Maya was born. For a long time, life felt wonderfully ordinary. Family dinners, Saturday soccer games, movie nights on the couch, inside jokes that only the 3 of us understood. If someone had told me our marriage would end because of one hidden phone and one anonymous photograph, I never would have believed them. The first change was so small, I almost missed it. Ethan started turning his phone face down whenever it buzzed. At first, I thought nothing of it. Then came the late meetings, the weekend conferences, the business trips that seemed to happen every other month. Whenever I asked if everything was okay, he'd smile. "Work's just been crazy." And because I loved him, I believed him. I had no idea that every excuse was laying another brick in the wall between us. If someone had asked me when my marriage actually started falling apart, I probably would have said the night I received that anonymous photo. Looking back now, I know it happened much earlier. I just didn't recognize the warning signs because they arrived one tiny piece at a time. At first, Ethan stopped asking about my day. For years, he'd come home, loosen his tie, kiss Maya on the head, and ask, "So, what adventure happened in your classroom today?" I'd tell him about a student who accidentally glued his shoe to the floor, or another who insisted dinosaurs still lived in Ohio. He used to laugh. Now he'd nod without looking up from his phone. "That's nice." That became his favorite sentence. "That's nice." 3 words, no questions, no interest, just enough to end the conversation. One Friday evening, Maya came running into the kitchen holding a drawing she'd spent all week making. "Mom, Dad's going to love this." She had drawn the 3 of us standing in front of our house, me holding flowers, her holding our golden retriever's leash. Ethan was in the middle, holding both our hands. She even wrote, "My favorite people," across the top in bright purple marker. When Ethan got home, Maya sprinted to the door. "Daddy, look." Without stopping to admire it, he smiled distractedly. "That's beautiful, sweetheart." Then his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen. His smile changed, not bigger, different, lighter, almost excited. "I've got to answer this." He stepped outside. 20 minutes passed. Maya sat quietly at the kitchen table, still holding the drawing. Finally, she whispered, "Did Dad not like it?" My heart broke. He loved it. Then why didn't he even look? I didn't have an answer. The late nights became normal. Sometimes he'd text at 7, running behind. Other times, nothing. I'd call. straight to voicemail. Then, an hour later, my phone would ring. Sorry, meeting. Always a meeting. Always another client. Always another excuse. One Sunday afternoon, Ethan announced he needed to leave for a regional sales conference. It starts tonight. I frowned. On a Sunday? They changed the schedule. When will you be back? Wednesday. Maya looked disappointed. But you promised we'd finish my science project. He smiled. We'll do it next weekend. She nodded, but I could see the hurt in her eyes. After he left, Maya carried the unfinished volcano into the garage by herself. I watched from the doorway. She wasn't angry. She was getting used to being disappointed. That scared me more than anything. 3 days later, Ethan came home carrying expensive chocolates for my girls. Maya hugged him immediately. Kids are wonderfully forgiving. I wanted to be too. Instead, I noticed something. The hotel receipt sticking halfway out of his jacket pocket. He disappeared upstairs to shower. I stared at the receipt. The hotel listed wasn't where his conference had supposedly been held. It was 45 minutes away. I picked it up. One guest, luxury suite, one night, no conference center nearby. The shower turned off upstairs. I quickly slid the receipt back exactly where I'd found it. When he came downstairs, I smiled. How was the conference? He didn't hesitate. Long. What hotel did they put you in? He answered instantly. The Marriott downtown. My stomach dropped, because the receipt I'd just seen was from an entirely different hotel. He lied so naturally it sounded rehearsed. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay beside him, listening to his breathing, wondering when had lying become so easy for him. Had he practiced, or had I simply stopped noticing? At 2 a.m, his phone lit up on the nightstand. One message. No name. Just a heart emoji. He reached over, grabbed the phone before I could even read the screen, and walked into the bathroom. The door clicked shut. 5 minutes later, he returned. You okay? I asked. Couldn't sleep. What was the message? He didn't even blink. Spam. Spam. At 2 a.m, with a heart. The next afternoon, I met my best friend Rachel for coffee. She looked at me for less than 10 seconds before asking, "What's wrong?" I tried to smile. Nothing. She folded her arms. "Olivia, I've known you since college." I sighed. "I think Ethan's hiding something." Rachel stayed quiet. "What makes you think that?" I told her everything. The late nights, the strange hotel, the secretive phone calls, the lies. When I finished, Rachel asked one question that stayed with me. If one of your students came to you and described this exact situation about their parents, what would you tell them? I stared into my coffee. I'd tell them something isn't right. She nodded. So why won't you tell yourself the same thing? That evening, Ethan came home unusually cheerful. I've got great news. What? I got promoted. That's wonderful. It comes with more travel. My smile froze. How much more? He shrugged. Whatever it takes. I looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time in months. He wasn't talking about us. He wasn't talking about Maya. He wasn't talking about home. Everything he said was about work. Or at least, that's what he wanted me to believe. I still didn't know about Claire. I didn't know about the second phone. And I certainly didn't know that someone else was already beginning to suspect Ethan wasn't telling the truth to either of us. The anonymous photo stayed on my phone. I must have looked at it 100 times. Every time I convinced myself there had to be an explanation. Maybe it was a business dinner. Maybe she was a client. Maybe someone had taken the picture at exactly the wrong moment. But there was one detail I couldn't explain away. The way Ethan was looking at her. I had known that smile for 12 years. It wasn't his polite smile. It wasn't his work smile. It was the smile he used to give me. I almost confronted him that night. He was sitting on the couch watching television like nothing had happened. I stood in the hallway with my phone in my hand. Just 10 steps separated us. 10 steps and one question. Who is she? Instead, I walked upstairs, not because I was afraid of the answer, because I wasn't ready for my marriage to end if the answer confirmed what I already suspected. The next morning, Ethan kissed Maya goodbye before school. Have a great spelling test, kiddo. She smiled. I studied. I know you did. He looked like the perfect father, the perfect husband, the perfect man. That was the hardest part. Cheating doesn't always look like cruelty. Sometimes it looks exactly like the person you've loved for years. After they left, I called the number that had sent me the photograph, straight to voicemail. No greeting, no name, nothing. I left a message anyway. This is Olivia. I don't know who you are, but if you know something about my husband, please call me. For 2 days, nothing. Then, Thursday afternoon, my phone rang. An unfamiliar voice spoke quietly. Olivia? Yes, my name is Claire. My heart stopped. I think, she paused. I think we've both been lied to. We agreed to meet at a small coffee shop across town. I arrived early. Every woman who walked through the door made my stomach tighten. Then I saw her. She looked younger than I expected, professional, confident. She wore a navy blazer and carried a laptop bag. When our eyes met, she immediately knew who I was. She sat down across from me. For almost 30 seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally, she reached into her purse. I owe you an apology. She placed a photograph on the table. It showed Ethan standing beside her at what looked like a company banquet. His arm rested comfortably around her waist. I didn't know he was married. I stared at the picture. He told me he was divorced. The room suddenly felt smaller. Claire continued. He said the divorce had been finalized 2 years ago. I whispered. We celebrated our 12th anniversary 3 months ago. Claire closed her eyes. Oh my God. She wasn't crying for herself. She was crying because she realized she'd helped destroy another woman's family without ever knowing it. I swear to you. She reached across the table. I never would have dated him if I'd known. I believed her, not because I wanted to, because I could see genuine horror on her face. Claire opened her laptop. There are things you need to see. She hesitated. I'm sorry. Then she turned the screen toward me. Pictures. Weekend trips, hotel reservations, dinner dates, birthdays, concert tickets. For almost 11 months, while Ethan was telling me he had late meetings, he was building another relationship. He'd taken Claire to the same lakeside restaurant where he'd proposed to me 12 years earlier. The exact same table, the exact same view. I couldn't breathe. I ended it yesterday, Claire said quietly. Why? She swallowed hard. Because I found your social media. You posted Maya's birthday. She looked down. There was a family photo. I realized. She paused again. I wasn't dating a divorced man. I was dating someone's husband. I expected to hate her. Instead, I pitied her. She had been manipulated just as completely as I had. We were victims of the same lie, just from different sides. Before we left, Claire handed me a small envelope. What's this? Evidence. Inside were printed hotel receipts, restaurant reservations, copies of text messages, even screenshots where Ethan promised her they would finally stop hiding after the divorce paperwork was finished. Paperwork that never existed. He told me he was waiting for one judge's signature. Claire shook her head. There wasn't even a divorce filing. I slowly placed everything back inside the envelope. My hands were shaking, not because I was angry anymore, because every single doubt I'd tried to ignore had just become undeniable. That evening, Ethan came home carrying pizza. Thought we'd have family night. He smiled at Maya. She cheered. I watched him laugh with our daughter. I watched him help set the table. I watched him ask Maya about school. And all I could think was, how many nights had he come home smiling like this after spending the evening with Claire? How many lies had we eaten dinner through? After Maya went to bed, Ethan stretched on the couch. You've been quiet lately. I looked at him. I've just been thinking. About what? I smiled faintly. About honesty. For the first time, he looked uncomfortable. What do you mean? I stood up. You'll find out tomorrow. His face tightened just enough for me to notice. He didn't know what I knew, but somewhere deep down, he knew his lies were finally catching up with him. I barely slept that night. Ethan fell asleep within minutes. I lay awake beside him, staring at the ceiling, replaying every conversation we'd had over the last year. Every I'm working late. Every the meeting ran over. Every I love you. Now each memory came with a question. Was that another lie too? Around 3 in the morning, I quietly slipped out of bed. I walked downstairs and spread everything Claire had given me across the dining room table. Hotel receipts, restaurant reservations, photos, text message screenshots, a timeline. It looked less like the end of a marriage and more like evidence prepared for a courtroom. I wasn't doing this to humiliate him. I was doing it because I knew one thing about Ethan. If I confronted him with only a suspicion, he'd deny everything. If I confronted him with the truth, he'd have nowhere to run. The next morning felt strangely normal. Maya ate cereal while talking excitedly about an upcoming field trip. Ethan scrolled through emails on his phone. I poured coffee. No one would have guessed our family was about to change forever. As Maya grabbed her backpack, Ethan kissed her forehead. Have a great day, kiddo. She smiled. I will. Then she hugged me. Love you, Mom. I love you too. The front door closed behind her. Silence. I waited until I saw the school bus pull away through the front window. Then I locked the front door. Ethan looked up. What are you doing? We need to talk. His smile faded. Can it wait? I have a meeting. No. It's waited long enough. Seal. I walked into the dining room. He followed. The moment he saw the papers spread across the table, he stopped. His face lost all color. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally, I asked one simple question. Who is Claire? He looked from the photographs to me. I can explain. I nodded slowly. I hope so. Because right now, it looks like you've been living two different lives. He ran a hand through his hair. It isn't what it looks like. I couldn't help it. I laughed, not because it was funny, because it was unbelievable. What exactly does this look like to you, Ethan? He picked up one of the hotel receipts. I was going to tell you. When? His silence answered for him. I slid another photograph across the table. You took her to Lake Emerson. He looked down. That's where you proposed to me. Still nothing. You remembered that place. He whispered. Olivia, you remembered that place for her. He finally sat down. I never meant for this to happen. People don't accidentally have an affair for 11 months. It started after work. I was lonely. I stared at him. Lonely? You came home every night. You slept in our bed. You ate dinner with your daughter. You celebrated birthdays. You smiled in family pictures. And somehow, you were lonely? He covered his face with both hands. I don't know how it got this far. You reached into the envelope and placed one final piece of paper in front of him. A screenshot. Claire had sent him a message asking when the divorce would be finalized. His reply read, soon. Then we can finally stop pretending. I looked him in the eyes. You weren't pretending. We were. He finally admitted everything. How it started with lunches after meetings. How the lunches became dinners. How the dinners became weekends away. How he bought a second phone so neither of us would discover the other. How he told Claire I was his difficult ex-wife. How he told me she was just another coworker. Every lie built on the last one until he couldn't remember which version of his life he was living. Then he asked the question I never expected. Can you forgive me? I looked at the man I'd spent 12 years loving, the father of my daughter, the person I trusted more than anyone else. I might forgive you someday. His shoulders relaxed. Then I continued. But forgiveness doesn't mean staying. His face fell. I can't wake up every morning wondering if you're telling me the truth. I can't teach Maya that love means accepting betrayal. I can't spend the rest of my life competing with your lies. He began to cry, real tears. I'll end it. It's already over. I'll quit my job. It won't change what happened. I'll go to counseling. I hope you do. For yourself, he reached for my hand. I quietly pulled it away. That hurt him more than anything I'd said, because for the first time in 12 years, he realized he no longer had the right to comfort from the woman he had broken. Just then, there was a knock at the front door. It was my brother, Daniel. I'd asked him to come over that morning, not because I thought Ethan would become violent, because I knew I couldn't go through this alone. Daniel stepped inside, looked at Ethan, then looked at me. Are you okay? I nodded. I am now. Daniel picked up Ethan's suitcase, which I'd packed before breakfast, and placed it beside the front door. Ethan looked at me in disbelief. You packed my clothes? I packed what belonged to you. He stood there for a long moment, hoping I'd change my mind. I didn't. He picked up the suitcase, walked to the door, then turned around one last time. I'm sorry. I looked at him calmly. I believe you, and that's what makes this so heartbreaking. He walked out. The front door closed behind him. The house became painfully quiet. But for the first time in nearly a year, there were no more lies inside it. The hardest conversation wasn't with Ethan, it was with Maya. For 2 days, I kept putting it off. I wanted to protect her. I wanted to believe there was some magical way to explain divorce without breaking a 10-year-old's heart. There isn't. On Saturday morning, I made pancakes, her favorite. Chocolate chips shaped like little smiley faces. She knew something was wrong the moment she walked into the kitchen. Dad didn't come home again? I took a slow breath. No, sweetheart. She climbed onto the stool beside me. Did you guys have a fight? I turned off the stove and sat beside her. We did. Is he mad at you? I swallowed the lump in my throat. No. Then why isn't he here? There it was, the question I'd been dreading. I reached for her hand. Sometimes adults make choices that hurt the people they love. She frowned. Did Dad hurt you? I nodded. Emotion filled her eyes. Is it because of me? The words hit me like a punch to the chest. I wrapped my arms around her immediately. Oh, sweetheart, no, never. This has absolutely nothing to do with you. She buried her face against my shoulder. Then why doesn't he want us anymore? Tears rolled down my face. He loves you more than anything. Then why did he leave? I couldn't lie to protect Ethan, but I also refused to make Maya carry the weight of his mistakes. So I answered as honestly as I could. Your dad made some very bad decisions, and because of those decisions, our family is going to look different. But one thing will never change. What? You will always have 2 parents who love you. She cried for nearly an hour. So did I. The following week, Ethan called every day. Sometimes I answered, sometimes I didn't. Every conversation sounded the same. I've started therapy. I ended all contact with Claire. I'll do anything. I know. Can we talk? We are talking. No, really talk. There isn't anything left to say. Claire contacted me once more. She asked if we could meet. I wasn't sure why. Curiosity won. We met at the same coffee shop where she'd first told me the truth. She looked exhausted. I resigned. You quit your job? She nodded. I couldn't walk into that office every day. I'm sorry. She shook her head. You don't owe me sympathy, no. But I understand what it's like to rebuild after someone else's choices. She smiled sadly. I've replayed everything. I missed so many warning signs. So did I. We both laughed quietly. Not because anything was funny, because we'd finally realized neither of us had been competing against each other. We'd both been competing against Ethan's lies. Before we left, Claire said something I'll never forget. I hope one day you remember your marriage for the good years, not just the ending. I thought about that for a long time. Ding for Nananamis van Gorend. Born 3 months later, the divorce papers were finalized. The courthouse was surprisingly ordinary. No dramatic speeches, no shouting, just signatures, ink on paper. 12 years reduced to a stack of legal documents. As we walked out, Ethan stopped me in the hallway. You look different. I smiled politely. I've been sleeping again. He nodded slowly. I haven't. For the first time since everything happened, I didn't feel angry. I felt sad. Sad for the man he'd become. Sad for the family we'd lost. But not sad enough to go back. I really did love you, he said. I know. I never stopped. I looked him in the eyes. I believe you. But love without honesty isn't enough. He lowered his head. I understand now. I hope you do. Then I walked away. I didn't look back. Milnard. Over the next year, life slowly settled into a new rhythm. Maya adjusted better than I expected. She still spent weekends with Ethan. He never missed another visit. He showed up to every soccer game, every school concert, every parent-teacher conference. I was glad. He hadn't been the husband I deserved, but he was trying to become the father Maya deserved, and I wasn't going to stand in the way of that.